Hi, and welcome to a Small, Medium, at Large podcast. I'm your host, Gail Heisen, bringing you intimate stories that heal. Today, we have an interfaith minister with us, Reverend Karen E. Herrick. Karen has shared her clinical expertise for 30 years in private practice and by lecturing throughout the United States. She is a lecturer with ceyoU.org, providing webinars for professionals and others interested in Jungian psychology. She has written 3 books: You're Not Finished Yet, Grandma, What is a Soul? And Psychology of the Soul and the Paranormal, all available through Amazon on her website, and on our description, you'll find all her contacts and information. I want to read a quote to you from Karen. Karen recommends an educational that would be attended by interested people, professionals, including evidential mediums, to build a consensus in our culture that these subjective, clairvoyant experiences can and do happen. I'm emphasizing this even more, she says. I'm emphasizing what she says. We need these wonderful stories in our culture. And that's what Small, Medium, at Large podcast is about. We're about sharing stories. We have no ultimate goal other than to be able to express stories to share with other people in hopes that it'll help them on their healing journey. A Small, Medium, at Large podcast has been up now for quite a few months. We want to thank the hundreds of subscribers. We want to say thank you very much for the comments, because the comments have been very positive and supportive and makes me feel like I'm on the right track and I should continue doing these shows. So I want to thank you, listeners. Remind you again, please comment, please share, please subscribe. And also, if you have any questions and you send them to us, we'll answer every question we get. It just may take a little while, but we will do it. So let's welcome our guest here today. Welcome, Karen. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Gail. It's a pleasure to be here.
I have a list of some different questions and things that I have that I wanted to go over, and there's a lot to cover here. So we'll do the best that we can. If we can't cover it all, then maybe we can have you back at another time.
All right, that'd be great.
I like to start off always with my first times when I have my guests, is I like to start at the beginning, which here is something to do with the traumas that we've all experienced. Not all of us, but many of us have in childhood. Some of us don't even remember the traumas that we've experienced, but through therapy and work, we've come to be able to deal with some of these things. So I was wondering if you might share with our listeners today a little bit of the traumas that you experienced that brought you to the place you're at today. And my other question is, in that same idea, is at what age did you finally really come to terms with all the different things that you had experienced? And at that point, did you feel healed? And what was the methods you used to get to that place for any of us listeners who've had trauma and are still struggling with some of the problems of that?
Okay. Well, let's see. I was raised in an alcoholic home in upstate New York, in a little town called Niverville, New York, in Columbia County. My father was a truck driver and he was an alcoholic. My mother was the oldest of 8, Polish family, very controlling, very, well, usually in an alcoholic marriage, you have the irresponsible alcoholic and you have the responsible wife. And I say that way because there's more male alcoholics in our country than female.
Oh, interesting.
And females usually stay with an alcoholic 9 times out of 10. And 9 times out of 10, if the woman's the alcoholic, the male will leave. So anyway, my mother stayed because she was Catholic and had to give up her religion because she married a Protestant. So I was probably considered illegitimate by my Catholic grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
I loved my aunts and uncles from her family. My father had one stepbrother and they lived next door. So I did have a lot of extended family around me. And we lived in this little town. My mother didn't drive. So my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, had 2 sons, and my father had been her first child. And let's see, his father died when he was 5. He was in a cast from his neck down to his thigh, and his appendix burst, and they couldn't get it off in time. So my grandmother talked about Daniel, her first husband, all the time in front of her second husband, which at 9 years old, I thought, no, that's not good. But she always loved Daniel, and apparently he had been a very lovely man, and it had been a tragedy that he died. Anyway, my father and my mother married, and I have had two brothers, 4.5 years and 5.5 years younger than me. And one part of my trauma, other than when you live in an alcoholic home, there's 3 rules: don't talk, don't trust, and don't feel. And you just learn that automatically, even though nobody says that's what you're learning. But you try to keep your mouth shut because you don't want to add any other angst to what's going on. You don't want to get hit. My father was not hitting. My mother, which was a screamer, but you don't want to get in any more trouble. So you just stay like part of the woodwork.
Yeah.
And then my paternal grandmother always told me to be a lady. Always be a lady. And I had no idea what that meant, but I thought it meant to be quiet. So I was very quiet. However, then when I was like around 10 years old, my father was actively drinking at that time, and he would drive from Albany, New York to New York, and that was just an overnight. So in an overnight, he's supposed to be home by 7 or 8 in the morning, and he would come in about 3 or 4 in the afternoon. Then he would go to sleep. Then the truck company would call about 7. And they had a rule, which I'm sure was for good reason, that they had to talk to the driver. So my mother and me, and I was her accomplice, had to get him up. So if you've ever had to get up an alcoholic who's only slept 4 hours, every other day. Now, when he would go to Maryland, that was a layover, and he had a room in a boarding house in Maryland. And I almost, used to wish he always went to Maryland, because then the house was quieter, right? So anyway, I was raised in that kind of a home. When I was in high school, he stopped drinking, never went to AA. So he was just dry drunk, he's still, but my mother was more of a problem after that, because she was always complaining about something or yelling about something. That was how she communicated. She was big on no
thing. I don't know. Everyone in my family yelled also.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, that was the way she communicated. We weren't allowed to have snacks in our house. So I realized lots of times she wouldn't get up for breakfast. She had cereal. I never ate cold cereal. And then you'd go to school and eat part of your lunch. And I realized when I came home from school, I was probably starving, but you couldn't eat until dinner at 5. So food issues were always a problem for me. And I had been
that.
Huh?
I said, I'm still suffering from food issues.
Yeah.
And for me, it's veganism. So,
okay.
And it was sort of like a cult. It wasn't exactly, I have nothing against the vegan diet and life. I know it's very healthy, and definitely for certain people's illnesses, it's the best cure for them. But because I was, beaten over ice cream and withheld food, and I was hungry all the time.
Yeah.
So to this day, I don't ever care to be a vegan again.
Right.
But I have to say, food issues, I'm 66 and I'm still dealing with food issues from that. These traumas, we think we've healed from everything. But there are times they rear their heads back up.
Oh yeah.
You have to know what to do to take care of that.
Yeah. I married my high school sweetheart and left New York and went to near San Francisco, because he was in the Navy, and lived there and had my first daughter there. And he would go in and out. I was on the aircraft carrier, the Midway, which is now down in Southern California. I wanted to stay in California when he got out of the service, because I wanted to live in California. It was beautiful. And I had been working for the Navy, and, I would always have been a really hard worker. He wanted to go back to upstate New York, so we did. And so for 6 months, we kind of starved in upstate New York. And then he said we should go back to California. However, he had a nice managerial job with Safeway that, was going to be a managerial program, and he lost that. So he went to college, I went to work, and I was not happy after that, because I really felt that he was not, pulling his share, and we didn't have the same value system. And of course, we never had been able to bond, because he had been in the Navy. So We had another daughter. And so the best thing I got out of my life were 3 daughters.
Mhm.
Anyway, I got divorced, and
He was not an alcoholic, right?
no, he
The
was not.
husband, no.
No, the second husband was an alcoholic.
Ah.
There we go. And I always said, if I ever married an alcoholic as a kid, 11 years old, I would not stay like my mother stayed. So, so that marriage lasted about 10 years, and I left, and I had a third daughter. And then I had been going to college, and because I always wanted to go to college, and my father didn't believe in educating women. So I went to the local college when I was deciding I was going to get divorced, and they had a women's center there. And I said, I don't know if I should go to college or go back to being a secretary, because I had graduated high school at 16. And so even my father knew he couldn't put me out in the world at 16. So he had sent me to secretarial school for 2 years. So I knew how to do shorthand and typing, and I still do type over 100 words a minute. So anyway, I went to the Women's Center and I said to them, what should I do? So they put me in this room with all these pictures of women around, like Eleanor Roosevelt. And I'd never been in a room with women looking at me, And they gave me this booklet and said to answer all the questions. So the first question was, if you had all the money in the world and all the time, what would you do? So I said I would go to college. And then 45 minutes later, the last question said, go to question number 1 and do it anyway. So I did. And it has made me the happiest person, really, my education. And I have loved every minute of it. And that's what I love about being a therapist, is you're never finished.
Mm-hmm.
You just keep learning and learning. I was in my 30s when I realized I'd been incested by my father. My therapist, I had gotten into therapy, and she said she thought I was an incest survivor. And I said, oh, no, that didn't happen. And then a synchronicity happened at that time where at my grandmother's farm up in Kinderhook, New York, there was a couple that bought it and wanted to restore it. And they had asked my mother to have somebody come over to tell them how we use the house. And so when I was up there visiting, I went over, and I was taking her upstairs. And my grandmother always said, she said there was a little room by the bathroom, which only worked in the summer, the bathroom. And that was your father's bedroom when he was a kid. And it was a maid's room from the former people from up New York City who owned the place. And so I come up the stairs and I saw the maid's room. And I felt like I had a little 8-year-old kid once that had been incested. And she said, now that happened to me, I have radar in my stomach. Mm-hmm. And I felt this radar on that doorway. And I got to the doorway and I said, this used to be the maid's room. And I just couldn't go in there. So I thought, wow. And the therapist had just said a week before, I think you've been incested. I thought, why can't I go in that room? So anyway, then I went around. This is the room that I slept in 8th grade, and blah, 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 and all that with the house. And then driving back, I thought maybe I had been incested.
So was it an intuitive feeling, your therapist saying this to you?
Yeah, well, yes. And I can see, if I go over, what she had learned about me, that I would think the same thing,
Mm-hmm. But you were a therapist at that time when you went back to the house?
I'm sorry?
When you went back to your father's house, were you a therapist then?
Let's see. Yes, I had a master's in social work.
Okay, so then
I was a social worker
dealing with this, but not thinking it was part of you.
That's right.
And yet you're in the field. So can
because
you
I said,
how deeply
at least that didn't
that
happen.
was?
Yeah, right. So I said, at least that didn't happen to my house.
Have you ever done body work?
Yes. Yes.
That was where mine came out, was in body work. And I didn't know, I wrote a paper about it called Trauma Hidden in the Body, because I did not know until I was pressed in different parts of my body in this therapy sessions. There wasn't talking, there was just like this deep pressure in the body. And then these images and visions would come to me. And that's when I remembered all the different abuses and assaults and et ceteras. But it was through body work. And I wondered where it had been, because I think it's like packed in your mind, but really it was packed in my body.
Yeah, well, yeah, your body has a mind also. Yes.
Exactly. In the stomach.
And you're unconscious. I was having chiropractic work done at that time, and he had been working on my neck. And so I came back and I'm driving down Broad Street, which is the main street in Red Bank, and I looked and I thought, oh, I can turn my neck. Isn't that great? That it's really working, right? So then, and I had been for a couple of years waking up about 4:20 in the morning, and eventually my therapist and I decided that was when the incest had happened, because the bar would close about 3 o'clock. He'd have one for the road, and then by the time he got home was after 4, and so then I would be incested. So that's also sometimes people have spiritual things where they're awakened at at around 4 o'clock. So that's one characteristic that you could have as an incest survivor, but also you could be having some spiritual experience that you're not aware of because you wake up the same time early in the morning. I just want people to know that.
Were you able to, at the time when you started working through and discovering this, were you able to speak to any people that were alive at the time when those things were happening to you?
No.
Or was it something you could only speak to the therapist and that's it?
Yes. My father was alive, I think about 8 or 9 months after I discovered that I had been incested. And my mother died first. And it was really interesting because I was up in upstate New York visiting, and my brother was taking my father to live with him in South Carolina. And I couldn't wait to get out of there because my mother now was not there. And I then realized how much my mother had protected me. Even though it was kind of hounding. She was always watching where I was, not where he was. But anyway, so
would it be safe to say she probably did not know any of this was going on?
No, I had a memory when I was like 4 of having my mother and grandmother come into that room that was right next to the bathroom and confronting him. What was he doing in this room anyway?
Right.
Because then it was my room. See? And he lied and he said this had never happened before. And I remember thinking, oh no, it happened before, right? So so I knew she knew. Well, later on, after everything is brought out into the open, at least my openness.
Right.
And I always had worked with clients that were sexually abused. They just came because you work with an alcoholic family, and that's what happens when people are drunk and don't know what room they're in.
Or which body's laying there.
That's how it is. So I think probably by the time that I was married to an alcoholic, and he was kind of scary to live with, sociopathic. And by the time I hit 40, when I got divorced, which took 2 years, I thought, oh my God, I made it. I'm 40 and he didn't kill me, because I thought the second one would kill me. I mean, never did. He didn't.
Yes.
But
here.
I'm here. So about then I started to be relieved that I had lived through all this, and now I was out on my own. And then the Adult Child of Alcoholic movement started, and I went to the first national conference, and I came back, and I had a friend who worked for National Council on Alcoholism downtown, and they weren't making any money. They needed money. And I said, hey, I type 100 words a minute. I just took all these classes on coming from an alcoholic home. I'll give 6 workshops. And so we planned that brochure, and I said, this movement's going to go. It's really going to go big. And the first night we had 92 people show up.
Wow.
And the second night, 125. And I mean, it just grew. Now, I thought that's how you got clients. They just all came. So 5 years later.
Really, you were on your path and your clients were following with you.
I really was, yeah.
So now what did you do with your therapist? This is where, so the healing began in your 30s and 40s?
My 30s to 40s, yes.
Yes. And how do you feel now since that? Do you ever have moments at all where you tap back into that kind of, I call it the black hole or whatever, that kind of space, or has it been completely alleviated?
Well, I don't think it's completely alleviated. The only time I get nervous is if I have to have some kind of medical test where they're going to put a machine over my face. Because it was oral sex that he did.
Oh.
And I had a whole memory of that one evening when I was awakened at 4:20. And
Mhm.
I had read an article somewhere that said social workers have some kind of perceptions about sexual abuse. I forget now the whole article, but it actually told you that you could have this memory, and that was a good thing. And so I looked toward the door. I was in the house all alone at that time, and there was this frame of a man there, and I was scared to death at 4:20 in the morning. And I had a therapist part of me, and the part that was scared to death. And the therapist part said, "It's 4:20 in the morning. You're all right. What's the matter?" And then I saw this a shadow, and I said, "Who are you? What do you want?" And then I realized, hey, this is the memory, right? So I told him to go away and get out of here, and he came closer and closer. And then I realized I was on my stomach, and I went this way, and that's why my neck was frozen all those years,
Mhm.
because the body remembers.
Yes, and that was probably the position he put your face in
He did.
when he was doing this to you.
Yes.
You know, it's it's a brave thing for people like you and I to share these stories, because some people can't even verbalize the things, even though these have happened to them. And because when we look upon what they've done, these things, it's atrocious behavior. It's we have to, but we have to also go to the place of forgiveness and understanding that those individuals were mentally not correct. And that I'm not saying that we should welcome them to the dinner table, but I'm saying that we should forgive what they've done, because they were born into whatever particular mental connections in the brain think it's okay to abuse other people for some reason.
Right, right.
And
But you
I,
have to remember it first before
yes,
that process can even, you can even think about it.
yes. So I don't want to dwell too much more on this. I just want to kind of tie it up and then go to all these other fun, exciting questions I have. But I have one last one in this area, which I was reading. I loved your interview I watched, and I was reading whatever I could that I had here. And I, if I'm incorrect, let me know. But I'm thinking that you're of the same mind thought that I am, which is that those experiences opened up a whole place of, I don't know what you want to call it, psychic energy, things that knowingness, hearing voices, seeing things other people don't see, different images, things like this that can happen. I found that when I've interviewed people that were having psychic things and they were scared about it, it was often because they couldn't remember that this has been really happening, but they've been kind of hiding that that part existed also. And I think that this part opens up in ourself. I don't know if it was the way of protecting myself that those things happen. I'm not exactly sure, but I'm grateful for it making me who I am today.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't be as good a therapist if I hadn't gone through all that and then remembered it and had a good therapist that helped me. And I didn't have that many psychic things happen until I went for holotropic breathwork training, where I laid down to supposedly just breathe, and then they said you would have all kinds of things could happen to you, but they didn't tell you what, because it's all very individual. And I re-experienced my birth, and I also felt another breath come into my body, which I found out after much reading in a year and a half or 2 years that it was a Holy Spirit experience, that I had this other breath. And was laying on a blanket, and I pulled up my legs in the birthing position, and I felt this breath go through my vagina and out my mouth. And I had the thought, well, I'm a channel.
Mhm.
I am just a channel. And then whose breath is that? But I've been told, don't think, just breathe. So I just breathed and did what I was told, because I'll do anything for education, you know. And anyway, and then after that, I experienced my birth, which I didn't know what that was. I was just pushing and pushing, and the leaders kept holding on my wrists and saying, push, push. I thought, what am I doing? And then I had this thought, where is my mother? And I thought, why would you think that? Well, because I was being born, right? And it feels like you're doing it all by yourself.
Is this
And
whole,
so after that, then I had to go and draw a mandala, which is a Jungian picture in a circle. And then it was a picture of nature, a flower, and the sun and the grass, you know. And I thought, well, that's interesting, but I had no idea why I drew it. And then you would go to lunch because they wanted to ground you. Now, I thought this whole thing had taken 20 minutes, but actually it had taken 4 hours.
Yeah, there's no time in that
No
place.
time
It's
in the
timeless.
now, you know? And so that was the biggest experience. And then after that, before I even had all that figured out, clients started coming to me. And one client on the way out said, you know, I leave my body at night and I'm afraid sometimes I can't get back in. And I'm thinking, well, they didn't teach you this in social work school. So I just said, how do you usually get back in? And he said, well, I think about it and I'm back in. And that's how you get back in to your body. But then I started reading Robert Monroe and about the Monroe Institute, where you could actually be taught to leave your body. And so then I helped him with that. But then people started coming, and I realized they weren't lying to me because I had just had this Holy Spirit experience in my birth. So they were bringing me all their stuff, you know.
So it's like the more you were opening up into the things in your world, you were in an invisible way attracting clients that were also having experiences that you could now equally share. So it was
Yes.
almost like intuitive work on both at the same time for yourself and for your clients, which I have to say, I think that makes the best therapist that you can go to,
Right.
because book learned therapists to me don't have the grasp and understanding in the gut of what the client is really going for and what they really went through. How can you? It's not their fault. I mean,
No.
so that brings me up to a question here that I thought was very interesting. I have two questions here, which I got from you, which is, when does the spirit body come to the physical body? Like, is that
Okay.
when we're born, is that all just one and we just come out as a whole spirit, or how does that happen?
Okay. So then I got interested in spiritual experiences, right?
Yeah.
So then I got my doctorate in William James, Carl Jung, and a little smattering of Maslow. So everybody has, I mean, 40 to 50% of the population have these weird spiritual things happen to them. And what I discovered was that in utero, when you are conceived, an atom is placed in utero. And that is the basis of the spiritual body. And then the physical body grows around that atom, which contains protons, neurons, all these things. And so that your spiritual body then is an exact replica, although more astral fluid, as your physical body. So you have this little miniature of you inside of you that continues to grow as you grow physically.
So that is at the moment of conception that this happens.
Yes.
I've always, I look at different personalities, and when you can discover what the moment of conception was from the people who conceived you, like I was a child that was conceived, I was a love child. So I was conceived with two people who were having an affair and were deeply in love with each other. And my personality is so different from family who've been born because it was either a forced marriage, because there was an early pregnancy. These children don't have that same, there's some sort of a zip that they don't seem to have in that. And I felt that it had to do with the moment of conception, whether you're conceived in love or you're conceived in trauma or you're conceived in, some people are doing it for ulterior motives or whatever the reasons were.
Well, all of that determines who we are.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And you look like a love child.
Well, I was in the Woodstock movie, The 100th Minute, with flowers, and
I knew it.
And I was definitely the picture of a flower child, and my hair wasn't gray then, it was blonde. So I had this other, like you have answers that seem very clear and simple that I really want our listeners to know about, which is, this other one is, when and how do we usually meet our soul?
Oh,
now
yes.
We know where we've had it come in. How do we meet that?
Well, you usually don't meet your soul till you die.
Aye.
But now we have a lot of people, right, who are having out of body experiences and near death experiences. So they are meeting their soul and then coming back in.
I experienced that, but I
Okay.
didn't think of it. I don't have any recollection that it was I was 21 years old, and I was giving birth to my first child. And I had never seen a doctor the whole 9 months of my pregnancy, because that's how my father had raised me, and I was still under his spell. And so he was delivering this baby, and I was dying in the process because I'd labored for 36 hours. And really there was no head, like he kept saying with a flashlight, I see a head there, and there was no head, you know. So I'd been pushing and pushing, and so I was in something called toxemia and preeclampsia,
Yeah.
which I guess are apparently quite dangerous.
Yes.
And my friend was there, and she had a midwife come, and the midwife looked at me and said, she needs to be rushed to the hospital. She's having a stroke. And I left my body. We had a little French car, a Renault, a little R10, and my father was following behind, and my husband was driving the little car. My girlfriend was in the back seat, and I watched the whole thing occurring. And I was above. I watched us driving all there. I'm watching them dribbling water in me, and I don't look good, but nothing can come out of my mouth. And I'm trying to say to them, oh, everything's fine, everything's fine.
Yes.
But it's not coming out.
Yeah.
And they put me into, the ICU. And the doctor just kept saying, I'm in the woods, I'm in the woods. We got to get her out of the woods. And it was not at all, it was the most pleasant and lovely experience I was having. There was music and flowers and lights, all kinds of light. And I'm giving birth at the same time, but I'm in this doorway of this other place. And I'm thinking, like, everything's good, I mean, that's how it felt.
Well, because you weren't in your physical body, you were in your spiritual body.
That's what I'm learning from you right now.
Yes.
I had not thought that of out of body. I just thought it was sort of a separation, but I wasn't sure what was I was separating from the physical.
Yes.
But I wasn't sure who that other person was.
That's right. Yeah. Nobody tells us, right? Nobody says when you die. Well, I understand if you go to an ashram, they tell you this,
right?
But we can't do that in the United States. So yes. So that's where the vagus nerve comes in. That's the channel in your body that you came up and you went out the top of your head, which is the usual way to do it. And you were just floundering around up there over your physical body that was going through all this trauma.
And is it there? I'm not sure when I jumped back in. I don't know, how that exactly occurred. Okay. I just knew that I always felt safe, and that this child would be born and everything would be okay.
Great.
And that was all that I could feel at that time.
Well,
and it wasn't until it wasn't until I had 2 more births that I realized it doesn't come with flowers and music. And the other births were at home, but this time I had a doctor, and then I had a midwife, and I gave birth underwater and birth in the bed. And it was full of the pain and the pushing and all the other stuff. But I kept saying, gee, this isn't like with the first one,
Right. Because you didn't leave your body the rest of the time.
No, I had to stay there and feel all the pain.
I know.
So our soul, so then that's why I think this is also one of the reasons that I feel like right now at this time, there are so many people doing these, like myself, these podcasts or talk shows or things like this, where people are really starting to bring up all these particular things, because so many are being brought back to life because of the medical abilities in the hospitals to return someone. They've been dead for 2 minutes or whatever. So yes, there are a lot of stories surfacing that people are sharing, and there's a commonness in them.
Yes.
There's a part of me that feels, there's one moment of me that feels like, oh, I'm not afraid of death at all. And when that time comes, I realize it's a very fine line, and you just sort of slip into it. But then there's another part of me could wake up in the middle of the night completely riveted with the fear of dying, and that I wouldn't see my children, and my body's going to be gone, and I'm going to have to come back and haunt them, So I want to talk about, my third question had to do with the vagus nerve.
Yes.
Because first of all, the chart that you sent me, which we will post on our site so everyone can see.
Okay.
I found that very fascinating because of having my own experiences. You were making a graph of things that like I've had felt like have happened to me.
Yes.
And I want to know, what is this nerve? Because I think I've had experiences with this nerve.
Well,
What is it?
it's the 10th and longest nerve in your body. Now, what I'm going to do is turn the computer
Okay.
to this from my book, okay? Just
Okay.
so I think, let me see if we can do this. No, I
Okay.
guess well, can we?
Well, if we tilt down a little, yeah, there you go. There you go.
So
That's
you
good.
can see this?
I can see it if you bring it a little closer to the computer.
Okay.
Okay,
How's
just a
that?
little more. Perfect. Okay.
Okay. Now, oops, wait a minute. I got to move this. Hold on.
Okay.
Okay. So this is your vagus nerve. We all have one. It comes in at the top of your head, comes down and goes around the neck where your amygdala is. That's fight, flight, or frozen. All right, mamiglia. Then it comes down the spinal column, goes into your heart, goes down the spinal column, and goes into your stomach. So it's the 10th and longest nerve, and it goes all the way down into your stomach. Now, so in your solar plexus is where your soul and your astral body stores. So when you decide to leave your body, which is an automatic thing that happens to us, and we have no control over it.
Exactly.
You go right back up that vagus nerve and out the top, and then the silver cord is there somehow and comes out. And the silver cord, you could be flying around there, but the silver cord is keeping you connected to your oxygen supply in your physical body.
Got it.
All right. Now, normally, if you look at a anatomy book, it says vagus right here by the neck. It doesn't show this whole thing. So there's Dr. Porges, who about 5 years ago wrote the book on the polyvagal nerve, and it's 40 years of research on this one nerve. So don't read his first book, read the second book that he made a little simpler, right? But this nerve, I had a client once who was a doctor, and I'm starting to read about the vagus nerve, and I was reading Dr. Porges' book as best I could. And I went to, and as a doctor was leaving, he's a client. Now I'm not supposed to, pump clients, but I said something like, I'm studying about the vagus nerve. What do you think about that? And he goes, the vagus nerve. And you could see he was trying to get it together. And he goes, that nerve is almost ethereal.
Wow.
It goes to every part of your body. And so it's very, very important. And now they're saying, well, I got interested in it because the way that you calm this nerve down is that you do, you breathe in through the count of 4 and breathe out on a longer out breath. So you breathe in 4 and you go 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And it's not our normal way of breathing. But if this nerve is upset, how does it get upset? Well, Darwin, he's the one that founded this nerve in the 1700s. He said that your stomach would feel anxious, would tell your brain danger, danger, and your heart rate would go up. So that's panic, post-traumatic stress, right? So you have to calm the stomach down. And how you do that is with that vagus breathing or yoga breathing, they call it.
So you're breathing in on the count of 4
and
deeply.
And then out.
And then out.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And you keep doing that. And if you have a hard time sleeping, keep doing that, because that vagus breath really will help you calm down.
Very important, because often we sense things in our gut. I think Dean used to refer to it as the belly brain.
Yes.
Yes. And that we breathe in and we breathe down into, in yoga, they say, breathe down into the belly, drop into the belly. And it seems hard at first, but once you finally experience the breath going down there, then you can continue going to that same experience of breathing down into the belly.
Absolutely. Now, one of the things that people need to know about is we have a physical body and we have a spiritual body. So we have 2 bodies. And that's very important. And I was recently, I wrote this essay for the BIX people that you interviewed, the winner, Jeffrey Mishlove.
Yeah, just in case anyone knows, that was the Bigelow contest, essays on proof of life after death.
So my essay talks about the fact that you have 2 bodies. and it talks about this nerve. But so far I've read 4 of those 29 winners, and I'm going to read all of them. And I want to see if anybody else says you have 2 bodies. Otherwise, how are they going to understand how this happens?
Thinking of it as 2 bodies makes it easier for me to get my concept. When I was a child, I used to leave my body all the time and fly around my house, and I just call it flying. But now you're giving me a whole new view, thinking that, wait, no, that was my spiritual body flying while my physical body was laying. That makes it feel clearer to me when you say this.
Well, it is clearer. Yes.
I'm just saying, this is all just coming in right now, and I'm just saying, wow, yeah.
Well, I remember one other medium telling me that. She said, yeah, my mother used to call us for breakfast, and I'd be out there flying around, and boy, you got to get right back in your body, go down to breakfast.
And sometimes you could feel an actual feeling of plunging back into the body. Sometimes
that's right.
You feel this like feeling. I don't know, but somehow you made me very happy with this.
Well, I am so glad you understand it, because you have no idea. I've had a couple people that interview me, and then I never see the podcast again, because they're so afraid of what I'm saying.
Oh, no. I think when a person has as many credentials and years of work as you do, the people have to understand this is not coming from some floaty person that's running around in the fields barefoot and naked. This is actually an highly educated woman who's been researching and reading about these different phenomena, and who realizes and understands the importance of us sharing these stories. It's not just physical abuse we need to share and open to. It's also our spiritual body that a lot of people are afraid to acknowledge exists.
I know.
For me, I'm auditory. I hear things.
Okay.
Now, when you tell that to a psychiatrist, they immediately want to put you on drugs and whatever. Right. I don't I see some, but mostly it's a knowingness and a hearing. And the voice just comes inside me. I don't know where the voice is coming from. I don't know who the voice is. I just know that it's giving me correct information and guidance.
Well, and that's another point, that not every voice you hear in your head is from you.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one thing that Carl Jung was taught when he was doing a lot of his experimentation with the Red Book and drawing and trying to get over his crisis that Freud had kicked him out, and so had a lot of other people. And he knew that, his psychology wasn't all that bad, Anyway, he had a guru that came into his dreams, and he told him that. He said, well, you're so arrogant. You think that every voice that comes to your head is you, and it isn't. And then Jung had to figure out, well, who else is talking to me? Right?
Exactly. Well, I think there was something else you said, that something about you just speak to the voice, or you speak to the thing and say, go away. It's some of the things that people are afraid of are very actually simple to deal with. And they come with, like when someone's trying to possess your body, you say to them, you cannot, you have to go and find your way in the world, and just acknowledge that happened. But
yes, you have to be very assertive if we're talking about possession. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to show you the other thing that I think you're going to put on your website. Yes. Where when we do hear a voice intuitively, how does that come into us, right?
Yes.
So we have chakras in our body, right? Are you familiar with chakras?
Well, yes, and you wrote something about that, and I've been told that by people, that when they see me, they know that I have, mediumship and other things about me, because they're seeing my chakra and it looks different than, and I know you wrote something about it looking different. So I've been told that I look different, but I really didn't get any information about it other than yours looks different.
Okay.
Something about holes, and I didn't know what you meant by the holes.
Well, yeah, a medium that had some spirits that were talking to me. How come this isn't working like the other one? Let me see.
I can see the top of the head.
Okay, maybe this way.
Oh yeah, that I can see it perfectly.
Okay, good. So we have 7 basic chakras. We start at the base of the spine and we go up to the top of the head. Okay.
Lift it up a
And they're
little.
gonna get to see this on your website.
We're gonna put it on our show.
When they right, when they
Yes.
hear us. Okay. So that the easiest way for spirits, now we have when you die, you become a spirit, meaning you are a person, but you have no body, no physical body, and you can't speak, but you can send thoughts.
Oh.
So we have lots of spirits, you know, people that loved us that are up there that are sending thoughts. We have a guardian angel up there. We have all these spiritual guides that supposedly pick us for life, right?
Can you send thoughts back to them? Are they hearing our
absolutely
thoughts?
You can send thoughts back to them. Yeah.
So, I mean, I've been doing that. I just didn't know that there was a I didn't know that.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, so the easiest way for spirits to come in is they right around here at the neck where the vagus nerve hits the amygdala. So that is where they send these thoughts. So some people get them at the side of the head, some people get them in the third eye, but the side of the head is the best place, okay? Most average place that I've read about. Now, okay, so like Oprah talked about, she was interviewing, I'm going to put this back and just have you look at me. She was interviewing this spiritual person, and about 45 minutes into the interview, she said, how come I get such good ideas in the shower? And he said, I don't know. And so she said, well, you know, some people say it's because the water is hitting the back of my neck. Then I'm in my family room folding laundry and I'm saying, yeah, it's hitting your vagus nerve and your amygdala. You know, nobody's listening to me. And then Rachel Maddow, who's a political columnist, one of my friends texted me, Rachel Maddow just said she gets great ideas in the shower and she doesn't know why. But that is why we get good ideas in the shower. And we also get good ideas when we're in the car driving, because we're in sitting meditation. And in the shower, we're in standing meditation. Right?
Yeah, I mean, that's where I get my good ideas. So I'm just agreeing wholeheartedly here.
Yes, right. And so that's where they send them, right here. So you get, so sometimes when I think to myself, that's not my thought, right? Then I wait to see if I get it 3 times. And usually it's more than 3 times, you know, like I'm hounded. Okay, all right. I'll call the person, I'll do it. And you know, it just works if I follow those intuitive thoughts. And then synchronicity comes in, which is, you know, 2 things that happen to you simultaneously and creates an aha moment. And that's what Jung said. He said the unconscious had an intelligence, and part of that intelligence was synchronicity, that you would be taught something that was very important and you needed to pay attention.
I think what you're talking about, I am not an educated person, just so you know. And sometimes I have a hard time, you know, pronouncing a particular word, but what you're saying, we did an experiment at the Institute of Noetic Sciences, and I was a subject for Dean Radin in this experiment. And, you know, I don't know, probably thousands of people have done this by now, I don't know. But it has to do with that thing you're saying in the back of the neck, the amygdala. And I think that was what they were referring to, is that was the same place where in the caveman days, they would sense a saber-toothed tiger was coming, and the message would come to them through that part of the brain. And that's how they would know that they better leave now because the tiger is coming.
That's fight or flight. The amygdala is fight or flight.
So in this experiment, what you would be doing is you'd be hooked up to all different physiological devices about your heart rate and your pulse or whatever, and you sweat, and there was nothing for me to do as a subject. You just sat there and 40 pictures were going to come by very fast. And it was to sense whether your body, that part that you're talking about, the amygdala, now I can say it right, whether that is knowing that the dangerous, scary picture is going to come. So in those 40 pictures, randomly would be 2 or 3 horrific real photos of accident victims, the eyeball hanging out on the side. I mean, they were really intense photos. And sure enough, I learned from beginning that experiment that my body can sense danger before it's coming, and that we just have to listen to those voices, because sometimes the voice is very quiet. And the more that you trust the voice, it starts becoming louder and louder. And once you start feeling a self-confidence, which I've had a problem dealing with, you can start feeling, no, we're not going that way because I know that there'll be an accident and we must go this way. These are the things that I feel are, when you start really getting comfortable with understanding those messages, you can then say, no, I know that if I have this feeling, I have to trust my feeling.
Yeah, you're intuitive. So don't say you're not educated. You're educated in another way.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. I'm not an idiot. No, just that I didn't go through high school and then I received an honorary PhD and I was like, how do I deserve this? But
because you have gifts.
Life experience. That's been my best teacher. And it's the right one for me. And education was the right one for you. And we're both using those tools out in the world now to help others if we can.
And we both have intuition.
Yes.
Which everybody has, right?
Yes.
They call it female intuition. Well, okay, so women might listen to it more, but everybody has it.
Everyone has it. And I think the reason that women have it maybe a little stronger or more loud or more intense is because they're the bearers of life. Yes. Life comes through them. And so I think there's right there an immediate, that's the one difference over the male, composition.
Well, I'm so glad you're interested in this, because what I'm saying is that we have to have more clairvoyant people, which would be you, to do some research in this area, to help study it, rather than these scientists that say nothing happens. Because if we look at the metaphysical systems that we live under, we're in the sensory world today, you and I talking on this. And then there's the clairvoyant world, where people have, experiences they can't explain, and where they do get all these thoughts, and they're really in the now. Like when you were in your spiritual body, you were in the now. There was no past, present, or future. You were there. And that's what clairvoyant is. Now, then there's a transpsychic reality where people are, cured of cancer and, those kinds of spiritual things that happen. So clairvoyance is very important. And Jung and James both said that all of these metaphysical systems were swirling around us. And that's what people need to know, that some people can pick up on the clairvoyant messages and some people can't. And other people just feel troubled or get sick to their stomach and they don't know why. Because nobody says, that other sense, that sixth sense is important, that we learn, how to develop it, Now, I used to...
I say it's not discussed in school, and that's when it's really more in the forefront when a child is young. And there's, that would be the time to say, yes, those things are correct. Yes, keep following your feelings. And that's where they tell you no. And so, there's
they
one
cut it off.
Yeah, I think it was Ellie Molina discussing about bringing these things into the school systems and teaching children, whether it's the meditating or the, what do you think the color is, or whichever it is, the exercises. And I'm hoping someone like her, who's a professional teacher and educator, maybe she can get through some of these boards. Maybe some school will be able to have classes like that in the future.
Right. My daughter teaches social emotional learning. I said, what is that? And to elementary kids. So kindergarten, first grade. And she said, this morning, what we're going to do is we're going to all do yoga poses and we're going to meditate. And she said, it's wonderful. And the kids just love it, and they say, Miss Johnson, let's do flying octopus or whatever it is. And they just get, and that's great, right? She's teaching them to listen to that little voice inside. So people are doing that probably in different educational facilities. So how can a person get into the clairvoyant reality? And one of the ways that I've done it is, I used to live in California. I lived in San Jose, and then I lived in Glendale, Southern California. And I was always big on these paranormal, astrology events and all this other stuff that I would go to.
Big in California,
right? And you go to a medium and ask a question. So that's one way you can do it, because you make an appointment from the sensory world with a medium. Usually have a question about your life or questions. You write them down. They even tell you write them down. You go to talk to the medium and you sit there, and you're not realizing, of course, that she or he is getting it from the clairvoyant world. right?
I
So,
try to explain that. It's hard to explain.
well, no, but just to know that they're getting it from another place because they have this gift. But you're in the sensory world, but you're there, and it's so much fun because you're in the now. You're right there, and then the energy is phenomenal usually, you know. And if it's not, then don't go back to that person. But and I so one time, you know, a few years ago, I'm driving back and I go to this one psychic maybe once every 3 years, and I'm driving back and I'm thinking, Karen, why are you so happy? You don't know that anything that she's told you will come true. And then I thought, no, things she's told me have come true, right? So possibilities is what we get, right? But you don't know that you're going to be this happy. No, but you know what? I don't drink, I don't smoke. This is what I do. I go to psychics. But I realized in reading Lawrence LaShawn, that he said this is where an average person would go and be part of the clairvoyant world. So they either have the I Ching, they have tarot cards, they have astrology, they have numerology, they have those types of things being taught to them, and they are in a sensory and the clairvoyant world at the same time.
I love this. You're putting just intellectual words to things that I experienced that I would never be able to voice like this.
Yeah.
I love hearing you say all these things, and I truly understand what you're talking about. And it's
well,
wonderful.
When I saw you interview Jeffrey, I thought I've got to get you to interview me because she's going to get what I'm saying.
In fact, even though we're on our show right now, at the end, I when I send my gift, I'm putting a check in because I want all 3 books that you've written, which I have to say, I'm just going to interrupt for 1 second, but I love the descriptions that you have for each book that you've written.
Okay, thank you.
And I just want to read those one little lines and then we'll go on. But
okay,
I think, I mean, just the idea that you wrote a book called You're Not Finished Yet. This book will help you understand the difference between being an alcoholic, a problem drinker, or a social drinker. What a wonderful book to offer for people that have either had alcoholism or have lived with alcoholism. Then, this is my favorite, and I really want this to be able to have to, even though I don't have any grandchildren, I'm surrounded by nieces and people with lots of young little kids. And so I feel this is a very important book, and I had not seen this particular title before. Where do they go? Are they okay? This book is for children and adult children who want to understand about death and what it looks like on the other side.
But the title of that book is Grandma, What is the Soul?
Oh, Grandma, What is the Soul? Sorry.
Yeah. And then where do they go?
Yes, that is, I'm just saying, I think that should be in every family's library to be able to handle those. You know, that's not an easy question to deal with a young child.
No,
and when their grandpa is dying or someone else is dying and they're there and they see all the sadness. You know, sometimes parents don't really know how to deal with the own sadness for themselves, let alone be able to help their child at that time.
Right.
So I want to say I highly recommend and looking forward to reading that. And then your last one on the psychology of the soul and the paranormal. That's the one I'm sure I'm going to get some very good pieces of, what do they call those little jewels out of? Because this book explains that your soul is your real self, a part of you that will never end and can continue to assist you throughout your entire life and on through eternity. I can't tell you how much I love that description, because that's how it feels like for me.
Right.
And I have those experiences. I don't do readings. I don't have a psychic shingle I hang out. The only thing that I do is when people come to me, I'm happy to, you know, either email with them about what I might just all of a sudden feel about something they've said.
Yes.
Or they come to my home and I put on all my Mongolian shamanic clothing, and then I'm protected, which I hadn't been in my past. I'm protected for my soul to do that work, which I always explain to them when they come. And now I feel backed by your information that anything that comes out of my mouth during our time of doing this blessing, I don't even have a word for it. I call it a blessing or a healing, whatever you want, because I have no idea what is going to happen during that. I don't. I'd say to them, maybe nothing will happen. Maybe you'll leave here and say, hey, what's with her? Or maybe you'll say, oh my God, I feel. And so far to date, everyone has left with that feeling, like you're saying, of a joyousness And it's usually where we contact with someone who has passed
Yes.
because they don't feel finished, like they didn't get to say goodbye or something like that. And the best thing that I tell them is that I step out of the way and then everything else comes forth. And my shaman clothing keeps me protected and gives me the tools to be able to navigate in the spirit world and then in this world at the same time with them. And not tons of information comes out, but information that hits them in their heart. So that
Yes.
you don't need a lot. It's like a few different things that happen. All of a sudden, I feel that person inside me and I start acting like them. And it's only a small thing. It could be the motion of your head. It could be just saying certain word and they say, oh my God, that's just how they were like. And it's very gratifying for me to have been able to assist in some way, but knowing that it has nothing to do with me. So
No,
that's
you
what
are,
I try to get them. I'm just like the vessel.
you're a channel.
Yes, like a
And you
YouTube
have,
channel.
you have bigger chakras than the rest of us.
Uh-huh.
So you have more energy that comes into you. You are like the battery that the spirits can come through.
I really feel like that. And
That's
I have
right.
this other question. I know I'm supposed to be interviewing you, but I have to ask questions about my own life with you.
That's all right. That's all right.
So when we talk about the silver cord
Cord,
and we talk about the vagus nerve,
nerve.
both of those feel somewhat, I've had these experiences that I didn't know that started in my 20s and I've had them into my 60s. And I've come to think that it's what's called Kundalini.
Yes, okay.
And that's when I've had visuals. When I told you I'm mostly here, but when this experience happens for me, I have everything is working. I'm
Yes.
hearing, I'm seeing, I'm feeling. My body, though, is going crazy. I mean, when you look at it from another, like I've had friends who've, coincidentally been with me when one of those have happened, and I don't know when they'll happen. They happen spontaneously. I can't control it. The last one I had was in Kansas at a conference in Kansas. And it was where we were doing a lot of gong baths and, spiritual sounds, a lot of sound. And the next thing I knew, it was the only time I have ever been able to say to someone, this is about to happen to me, something very strange. Can you get me away from everyone, But it feels like you're drawing where what I see is gold light shooting up from the base of my spine and coming out the top of my head. And it looks sort of like a waterfall or something. And it's going out like this.
Yes.
And I look at my hands, and my hands, it looks like gold sparks are spewing out of the hands. And I can't move. And if you look at my body, it's shaking and it's, it looks like I'm having some kind of a convulsion or some sort of thing like this. And it was only in this one last experience, imagine having these, I've had about 6 or 7 of these over those years, having someone there, she took a photo of me afterwards, which I had never seen what I look like when this is happening.
Yes.
But on the outside, a regular person that doesn't know anything about this would say, rush her to the hospital, which one of my friends wanted to do once. And she's having some kind of a severe convulsion. But inside, nothing like that is happening to me. I'm having the most amazing, magnificent connection to something that feels more powerful than a name. And I'm not able to express it then because I can't speak either during this. It's very hard to verbalize. And the only words that come out in other languages. They don't come out in English.
Okay.
So is that my nerve thing? Is like what's going on in that chart you had when something like that is happening and that whole tube or something inside me is all, coming through with all this golden light.
Okay, so you're having vibrations, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your whole body is vibrating.
Yes.
So I had this thing here on ions, which is in my book also, but I'll just read it to you because we're running out of time.
Oh, yeah. Oh gosh, I wasn't even looking. Okay.
Electricity is a basic feature of matter that makes up everything in the universe. All chemical activity in your body is initiated and regulated by your ion channels. An ion is an atom or a group of atoms that has an electrical charge, which is either positive or negative, depending upon how many protons or electrons it contains. The solutions inside our cells that keep these ions going are high in potassium and low in sodium. Okay, so Carl Jung was present at an investigation of a medium. An electrical engineer measured the degree of ionization of the atmosphere in the immediate vicinity of the medium. At one point on the right side of her thorax, the ionization was about 10 times the normal of everybody else in the room. Okay? And he stated the ion situation needs to be studied further and is a task for the future. If such things can occur, then it is also conceivable that persons in the vicinity of the medium might act as a source of ions. So they can also draw from the other people. That's what a seance was, right?
Yes.
In other words, nourishment might be affected by the passage of living molecules from one body to another. But what is happening is that you are vibrating. This nerve is vibrating. And so if I had pieces of plastic that I could put over this, I would put the chakras over this. And I would put your electric body that they talk about in chiropractic terms. They say that that's what they work on, is the electricity in your body. So you have the chakras, you have all of these spiritual centers, and you are vibrating to your vibrational level, which is much higher than somebody else's because your chakras are bigger. And you have chakras at the end of every finger. So, and you are going up, and you're going up the vagus nerve out the top of your head, the crown chakra, and you are just alive. Now, this is what happens to near-death people. I was reading this lady who does the chiropractic energy, and she said right around the ears is where the body turns, and as the body, and this is, you can't control this either, but the people that have left their bodies, maybe some of them might know about this. The ears kind of turn, and then the soul body just decides it's leaving at this moment when everything is vibrating. And the soul body comes up as atoms, molecules, protons, chemicals. So your physical body stays here on Earth. All this other stuff that makes up your astral body, which is the characteristics of the astral plane, leaves.
Wow.
And then you fly out there. The vagus nerve is attached to the silver cord, and you go around, and that cord is so elastic for people who have seen it. A lot of near-death people have not seen it. So then some near-death people say, oh, that's fluid. Well, it's not fluid. The silver cord's in the Bible. And what it says in the Bible is that if it's cut, you die.
Right.
So you just fly up there and you have all this energy. You could go, I don't know where, and I don't know how all of that you could heal with, but people that have the near death, they're kind of whirling up like a vortex out of their body. And you've experienced that.
Yes.
And you can tell about it.
Well, and the other thing was, I've always wondered, because of the only thing I could call it is electricity, because I have no other word for what I'm experiencing. And I say that it feels more than 220 volts going through me. And so I often wondered, how did I damage any of my organs? Because the funny part of that intensity where the electricity is coming through is a tightening in the body. And I could feel my liver, my heart, I felt like all my organs were all like constricted.
Yes.
And then I just often wondered, is that an experience that brings more life into my organs, or was that an experience that it's lucky I survived from?
Well, I think that the organs, of course, of your physical body somehow have to remain rigid, and it's your spiritual body that is taking over.
Okay.
Right?
Oh, so maybe that
it makes a lot of sense. And that happened to a lot of people that left their body, right? And we're looking down in this encased spiritual body, looking down at the physical, saying, what's the matter with you people? It's wonderful up here.
Yeah.
I'm not feeling anything. And then the near-death people, they're given a choice to return. And some of these people that I've talked to, they say, I didn't want to return. Who wants wants to go back down there? I don't want to go back down there. And they're told, if you do go back down there, you're going to have to learn how to walk again and talk. No, I want to stay here. Well, it's not your time to stay here. So anytime you want to talk about this, I am here, because it is wonderful that I can talk to somebody who's clairvoyant and has done all this stuff that I've read about they've been talking about this for 200 years.
Well, I would love to have you on my show again. That's number one. Number two, I'm really looking forward to your books.
Okay.
And number three, I feel like I didn't find you, you found me, and I'm really grateful. So I just want to say, I feel like this is like the Casablanca or something. This is the beginning of a new friendship.
I would love that.
And also we had similar paths where I experienced a relationship with alcoholism. I came from New York and moved to California. I went first to Southern California, then I went back to New York again. Now I'm up in Northern California. And I, like you, once I came to California, I knew this is where I belong. And I guess it was all the tarot card. I mean, that's where I got my first tarot cards and started reading tarot, when I was 15. It was the place, like you're saying, everything was called the Mystic Shop and the Mystic Book Place. And I loved all of that. I mean, we know there's a lot of charlatans and other things out there, but still, I just love the openness to the paranormal that's more apparent here in the state for some reason.
It really is. No, that's true.
So where do you go from here now? You're continuing with your clients? And
well, I'm part-time with my clients, and I do teach on CEU.org to other therapists, and a lot of therapists have clairvoyant gifts, but they can't mention it in the psychological field.
No,
but they use them. But I can talk to them and validate that this is fine, and they talk about that, which is wonderful. And what I intend to do is I intend to read every 29 of those winners on the Bix contest, because I want to see what they say. Now, are they just repeating all this stuff and they still don't know how it works?
Has all of them been published on the site yet?
They have them on the site and you can download them.
Okay, because I have two people I interviewed that won that, which I thought was pretty funny. Yeah. But I didn't, when my interviews are pre-recorded, so it comes out after. But Jeffrey Mishlov's we did right. I just happened to have coincidentally booked him for the day after he received the announcement.
That's wonderful.
And so it was really wonderful, and he's such an amazing man. But the other one is a show of mine that just came out recently called it's Nick Cook. It's a podcast with Nick Cook, and he entered his paper, which I have right here also to read. And there's a mention of me in the paper as when it comes to shamanism. So I felt like, oh God, I got to sort of be a little part of this. And he also won an award. So I had two people that I interviewed that won this award, and now a third who submitted the paper because they also want to know everything about this particular subject. So I think we could have another talk after you've read all 29 papers. I want to find out the results.
That would be great. That would be great. I would really like that. And Jeffrey's paper was wonderful. He deserved $500,000.
It's a lifetime achievement award for him.
Yes.
And he is, I could not have been happier. Yeah. And I loved when he shared the story that he always knew from the minute on he was going to win.
That's great.
But that was a good intuition.
Yeah, it was good intuition. Yeah. Well, it's been lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming on our show. I'm going to just have a little quick closing here, but don't leave.
Okay.
And I want to tell our viewers, it's been just an absolute pleasure to have Karen here today. We'll have all her information on our description. We'll be putting up a photo of her chart so you can see the vagus nerve. And we'll also put up her sites and her books so you can find out where to get any of these things. So remember, people, like, share, comment, subscribe, and also have a wonderful day. And remember, share your stories because stories can heal. Thanks and have a great week. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye.